welcome back to the Common Sense Medicine Podcast with your host, Dr. Timothy Chen. I'm your co-host, Michael Abernathy. And today, tell us what we're talking about.
We were talking about low testosterone in men.
All right.
Yeah. It's, the reason we're bringing it up, it is everywhere, whether it's social media, whether it's advertising, whether it's whoever or whatever, it's everywhere. And there's so much confusion going on. And we figured we did some research, do some reading, and let's just kind of clarify a little bit and maybe help people make better decisions.
Yeah. I mean, we probably won't get so far into it because we're not endocrinologists and it's kind of not our area, but we can talk about a little bit. And because I see a lot of it too in my coaching, obviously in men who are struggling with different things or are kind of just looking for solutions. I think a lot of people are looking for solutions, and they'll see something online or they'll have a friend that'll tell them about something, and they're like, I just think my testosterone's low. And I'm like, it might be, but we can test that and see. But if it's not, then that's something that we can work on. So it's becoming very common to get that question or to get that statement and from guys that are like, I just think my testosterone's low.
Correct. Yeah. And so today what we'll mainly be focusing on is not like, so there's essentially two types of testosterone that we look at. There is true, what we call hypogonadism. So the normal range of testosterone is between 300 and 800. These people are 12. Right, or 15, or essentially what's happening is the brain or something is physiologically shutting down. And so we're not talking about these population. They need replacement. We've got great data that they will benefit from replacement. Sure. The one we're talking about is the guy who's has very vague symptoms. Maybe the testosterone comes back at 380 or 350 or 400. So not low, but low normal. And so there's a lot of confusion on what's causing that, what to do about that. And we're coming at it mainly from maybe a lifestyle, environmental factor approach. Yeah.
And when I was researching testosterone, to make handouts or presentations or whatever for my coaching and stuff like that, the thing that I found difficult is that the range of normal is extremely large.
Right.
When we look at other kind of lab values like cholesterol and blood sugar, the normal ranges for that are not super big, but with testosterone, my numbers were 300 to 1200 was a normal range. And I'm like, that's a big difference between 300 and 1200.
Absolutely.
And something I think a lot of people don't understand or don't get, that you can have a testosterone of 350 and be completely normal, and somebody else could have a testosterone of 800 and feel terrible, and feel like they aren't where they should be or whatever. So that range is broad because everybody's a little bit different. And I guess it just depends what's your normal. And there's such drastic differences between one man and the next that the range has to be broad enough to capture everybody.
Yeah. So today, we'll start off with this idea of being low, right?
Okay.
So we'll start there, Michael. And like you said, there is a wide range of normal. We know as we age, men will start to lose testosterone a little bit, about 0.5% to 1% every single year. And that is normal aging. And maybe this is a pet peeve that I don't like to point out. I don't like making normal aging pathological. You know what I mean? There's things that happen with aging that are just normal. It may not be great, but it's, my knees hurt a little bit more when I do my squats and stuff like that.
Sure.
But what we don't want to do is now make this a medical problem where we have to find a treatment to fix.
Right. And that's, I look at because there's a lot of correlation between testosterone levels and lean muscle mass. And so as we age, one of the things that we start struggling with is our bodies just stop producing proteins, new proteins, as efficiently as they used to. And so that's why, protein needs in your diet go up. You have to eat more protein to kind of get the same benefit. And at the same time, your ability to absorb nutrients kind of depletes a little bit. So you have to eat more nutrients to kind of get the same benefit. Well, when your protein needs go up, but you don't increase your protein intake, your body starts to get it from muscle. So that's one of the big reasons that muscle tissue starts to decline with age, is because we're not building it as efficiently as we used to, and we're not compensating for that if inefficiency by bringing in more protein. So you see that decrease in skeletal muscle as we age, and it's basically in line with the decrease in testosterone as we age. So, there's probably a connection there where if you can, increase your muscle mass and increase your protein intake as you age, that it can counter a lot of those age-related muscle wasting. And that may also contribute to a reduction in the age-related testosterone loss.
Absolutely. And I think we push that a lot. We push exercise, we push muscle growth, we push all those things, which I guess maybe starts off with our first point. So one of the things that we tell people to focus on, so if somebody comes in and they say, I think I have low testosterone, I got my blood test check, it was like 350, so it's not really low, but I just feel like I'm tired, I have no drive, no libido, all these things. One of the big lifestyle things we focus on is how is your food, right? And speaking of what you said, how is your protein intake? Because one of the big things that we start noticing as we age, and of course with the standard American diet, it's not that great. We don't get enough protein. We get way too much processed stuff and things like that. And so a lot of times when we start eliminating those things, a lot of times we will be able to build up skeletal muscle, which will help with some of those low testosterone readings.
Yeah. And there, I'm not sure if there's a lot of, I'm sure that there is evidence out there. I'm not familiar with it. Like the degree of processed foods and maybe some of the ingredients or the, level of processing contributing to hormone levels. Right. Like I'm sure that information is out there. I'm just not familiar with it. But what we see a lot of times when you start replacing processed foods in general with more healthy foods is you start to see body weight come down.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily because they're tracking how much they're eating. It's just that those foods tend to be more filling. And we've talked about that in other episodes. But, those foods tend to be more filling. So you just end up eating less food. And then protein being more filling. If you're eating more of that, you're staying full longer and you're just eating less. So you tend to see weight loss in response to, cleaning up, I'd say that in air quotes, cleaning up your diet by just reducing processed foods.
Yep.
And that weight loss also contributes to, increased testosterone levels. So it could be, that you're getting plenty of fruits and vegetables, you're giving your body the protein and all the nutrients it needs for testosterone production. But if it's also leading to improvements in body composition, that can play a role in it too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think we probably should have started with this. One of the really big reasons I looked through as I was researching this topic was obesity is a huge contributor to low testosterone, which might be one of the reasons, like you hear people say all the time, our grandfather's testosterone levels were much higher than, us, but also their obesity rate in our grandfather's generation is significantly lower than ours as well. So there is a huge connection with obesity, the fat cells being not just, we call it inert, right? Fat cells aren't just hanging around doing nothing.
Right.
They are contributing to hormone production, unfortunately, mostly estrogen. And so this idea of controlling obesity, making sure your weight's down, whether it's through diet changes, which is where we're on right now, there is data pointing in that direction that if we can clean up the food, that might help with the weight going down, the muscle going up, and affecting testosterone levels.
Yeah, and I was actually looking into the link between obesity and testosterone and what's going on in the fat cells, and a lot of it is the increased fat cells, the binding, I guess, protein that carries testosterone around is reduced with obesity. And so what happens is that you have less bound testosterone and more free testosterone. And because of different enzymes that are released by fat cells, that free testosterone is more easily converted into estrogen, which then kind of makes the problem worse because with increased estrogen, you start getting decreased muscle mass and, you're storing fat in other places. That's why you tend to see things like belly fat or increased breast fat with higher estrogen levels and lower testosterone levels. And so obesity kind of, as we've talked about in the weight loss series, it is a compounding thing. So obesity just kind of makes it worse because it converts your testosterone to estrogen, causing decreased muscle mass, which then increases your fat stores, which then continues to convert free testosterone at a higher rate. You know what I mean? So It's like we got to interrupt that at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah, which moves on to our second thing. So now that we're addressing these under what we call it the root causes, exercise, weight training, there is a lot of data with increasing exercise.
Tons.
Yeah, with weight training and how that naturally just boosts up testosterone levels.
Yeah, both, and I think specifically all exercise is good, but specifically for testosterone, strength training,
yes,
and HIIT or HIIT, high intensity interval training, is kind of, those are the two best options for exercise when it comes to increasing at least short-term testosterone levels. But that short-term increased testosterone can help with building new muscle and recovering tissues and stuff. And so over the long term, as you increase your muscle mass and decrease your fat mass, it kind of helps reverse that cycle that obesity is kind of causing that leads to lower and lower and lower, and it just causes it to go higher and higher and higher.
Right.
And so, when we're looking at what lifestyle factors can you do, exercise, strength training, high intensity interval training, with sufficient protein intake and just being consistent with that, those two things are massive.
Yes.
And just reversing that and causing the reverse compounding effect where your testosterone just keeps going higher and higher.
Absolutely. Well, and again, this is kind of our plug maybe in this time. And if you don't know, about habit change, listen to our last episodes, right? But this is one of the ones I will push patients. Like they're like, I don't have motivation to exercise. I was like, well, we've got to find something. Yeah. Sometimes you can't wait for motivation. You just got to start doing something to start there.
Yeah, and we've discussed motivation before, but one of the things is, if it's the exercise itself is probably never going to be the thing that motivates you to exercise.
Right.
And we talked last week about finding your why and getting that underlying motivation. So it's like, what is your motivation? And if it's strong enough, you'll exercise.
Right.
Let's say that your testosterone is low and you are wanting to have kids. Having low testosterone makes it more difficult to have kids.
Absolutely.
And we talked about kids last time. They're a powerful motivator.
They are. Absolutely.
And so if you're struggling with trying to have kids and your sperm count is low, which is, a symptom of low testosterone, and it's just, or your libido is low,
right,
like your sex drive is low, that's a pretty good motivator to get to do what is necessary. And so if it's really that important to you, exercise is kind of one of those things where the exercise itself isn't going to be the motivator, but it is kind of the, it's the end result of being motivated by that deeper level.
Correct. Yeah. And with all the data showing how much exercise can improve testosterone naturally, as far as much people that tell me they don't want to be on medication, they don't want, they want to go off the root cause. That's one that we have to take advantage of because the data is pretty solid with that.
Yeah.
Yep. Another one, Michael, moving on, sleep.
Yes.
This one, okay, we'll just go ahead and say here. Testosterone is most of the time, all of it, mostly produced when we sleep, right? Specifically in that deep sleep phase. So if we're not sleeping, I don't know what you're going to do. Yeah, you can't produce any.
Yeah, well, when you were talking about it all being produced, I was thinking like that deep sleep phase, and it usually peaks like first thing in the morning, which is, I'm not going to say specific things, but guys know what I'm thinking about, like what happens in the morning when your testosterone is super high.
Yep.
Like that's why. But yeah, sleep is really important in building up that testosterone. So getting adequate sleep, and as it pertains to obesity, sleep is just so important for that too. So, there's so much hormonal, regulation and repairing and resetting and kind of, everything that kind of needs to reorganize itself and get reset for the day. All that happens like while you sleep.
Absolutely.
And not getting enough sleep and not enough restful sleep, quality sleep, can lead to not only testosterone dysregulation, but, insulin, glucose dysregulation, leptin and ghrelin levels.
Yeah.
So much goes wrong when you don't get enough sleep. And that's something that we're just not doing very well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things too, where like, again, one of the common symptoms of low testosterone is fatigue. Well, if you don't sleep, you're going to have fatigue too. So it's one of those things like if we can't figure out where the fatigue is coming from, that's the first place. And I like what you said before. It has to be restful. Sleep quality matters. And so like if you're the person that maybe is on your phone or watching TV on, on your computer or playing video games until like 11 and then try to go to sleep right after, the brain waves are all jacked up. Yeah. Right. So even if you can get, 7 to 8 hours, the quality is not great. So this is one I think we've talked in our sleep episodes. If you haven't seen that, go back to there. But sometimes you have to push the 21st century out of your bedroom in order to get good sleep.
Yeah, it's interesting that you word it that way, because a lot of the ways that our body work have been exactly the same forever. And so all of these new the introduction of the food environment that we live in is just too soon. Our body does not, it doesn't work that way. And so the environment that we've immersed ourselves in is not set up for our, long-term well-being.
Right.
It's definitely an increase in like comfort and entertainment and that kind of stuff. And so I was actually writing the other day, and I wrote down this thing that we have basically mastered, hedonism, where everything we do is done for the purposes of decreasing discomfort and increasing our comfort. And that's probably not the best thing in the world for us. We've eliminated all of the challenges, and we've eliminated, but the environment that we've built, especially when it comes to sleep, and I'll circle it back around because we could get really off topic with that. But we've put ourselves in a position, as a people, not just individuals, but as a people, we've put ourselves in a position where our body is not enjoying the world that we have put it in, and obesity, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, a lot of these are just symptoms of that environment that we have created for ourselves.
I mean, we call it diseases of civilization, right? A lot of things that I think they said back in like whatever the medieval times, diabetes I guess it was mainly type 1, was like 1 in 300, right? And now it's like 1 in 10. So it is definitely accelerating, but you're exactly right. Unfortunately, our current comforts have disrupted a lot of things that our bodies were designed to do, which unfortunately we're seeing a lot of the downstream effects. And so to get those things better, we'll have to look. We're not have to go out, grow our own farm, have our own cows. We don't have to eliminate the car and, eliminate gasoline. But we just have to be aware that these things we just have to be aware.
Yeah, we don't have to go all the way back to the medieval times and get rid of everything, because I think infection was pretty devastating back then. I think the antibiotics are okay, to a point, just like anything else. But, we don't have to go all the way back, but finding little ways to, like you said, remove the 21st century from the bedroom, especially when it comes time for sleeping. We gotta start working on little things like that.
Correct. Another one, I don't know if this is already on your list, but stress.
It is. So that's interesting that you bring that up, because I was reviewing my handout that I made, and stress is not on there, and it should be. And I don't know why I didn't put it on there. I'm going to have to go back and put it on there. But stress is a big one.
Absolutely. I had a gentleman that came in. His testosterone was pretty low. It's like 140 something. And he was going through a horrible divorce. Everything was bad. Mentally, everything wasn't good. Sleep wasn't great. I saw him 3 months later. Everything had gotten better. The divorce went through. He got to keep his restaurant, yada, yada, yada. Everything was great. Testosterone jumped like 400 points, 350 points. And I was like, what did you do different? He's like, I'm not stressed anymore.
Yeah. And I'm sure that it's, the metabolic consequences of stress with increased inflammation and the hormonal disruptions all kind of play a role in that. But stress does a whole lot to the body that's not good. And especially, chronic stress. We're okay dealing with acute stress. We have a lot of different mechanisms to kind of help combat that. But when it's chronic stress, which a lot of people are dealing with, and things like poor sleep and poor diet contribute to, the effects of stress and our ability to deal with it. And the life that we kind of have, where work is, the majority of our day, and we're just go, and we don't have a lot of time. Everybody is a little bit stressed, it's a problem.
Yeah. And so exactly. And who knows if it's kind of like, maybe when back in the day, when things are really, really stressful, it was either famine, it was war, something like that, where the body is like, this is not a good time to bring a child into this world. So the body is physiologically responding to that by suppressing things and waiting till a peacetime where, things get better. Who knows if that's the exact mechanism, but we definitely have seen that when stress is high, and again, fatigue is a common thing when stress is high. So some of these symptoms are so vague, it's hard to tell which way it's coming from.
Yeah. And that's why, when you start having these conversations with patients about testosterone and they have all these symptoms, it's like, well, those symptoms are kind of the same symptoms for a lot of things.
Correct.
And so my general approach is, you can get your testosterone checked. That's not up to me. You have to talk to your doctor about that, obviously. If you are just curious as to what your testosterone levels are, your insurance is not going to pay for that test. It's going to be like $150, $200. And if you want to pay out of pocket for that, that's fine. But normally you kind of have to have these recurring themes of symptoms that are past a certain point of time before insurance will kind of cover that. But I mean, you can check it, but if you're not already, managing your stress, getting plenty of sleep, eating a pretty good diet, exercising regularly, and limiting your alcohol consumption.
I was going to say, yes.
we'll throw that one in there. Those are all probably things that you should start doing first if you're overly concerned with it, because things like jumping straight on to testosterone replacement therapy, or TRT, if you've ever heard that, it may not fix your problem long term, especially if you aren't actually having low testosterone. And in a lot of cases, with every other system in the body, there are these homeostatic mechanisms where, if things get too high, the body will, regulate that by moving things around to kind of bring it back down. If you're just pumping your body full of testosterone, your natural testosterone production is going to go down because you don't need to produce that much. And so you start seeing, shrinking testes, you start seeing lower sex drive, you start seeing, infertility or what is it, impotence, all that kind of stuff. And so, there's all these, like, there's this level, there's this range that it's probably okay. But once you start getting above that, it starts becoming a problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And this is interesting because I thought about it when you were talking about, the body's response to like war times or peace times and fertility rates and stuff. We know that if your body fat percentage gets too low, you stop producing sex hormones. Because the body fat has to be to a certain point to have enough to produce sex hormones. Well, then if you start getting too much body fat, it starts to impair your, sex hormone production. And so just like that, there's this range of body fat where in the middle, in the healthy ranges, it's optimal. And as you get further away from either side, your body just doesn't start working properly. So it's like there's a range there that it needs to be in, but
absolutely. So exactly. And I would say maybe even one of the things that to watch out for, because when I think most people, if they do start therapy, and we're going to talk about alcohol because I think that's a huge one, but it is something that you probably need to stay on for the rest of your life, right? Because again, if you're on it for a long time, your body stops making it, you can't come off, otherwise you'll feel like death. And so that's And a lot of people don't really understand why bodybuilding is not the healthiest thing in the world. It's really easy to look at the bodybuilders and think, oh man, they're so healthy. Like, no, that lifestyle is awful. Physically. Like, we won't get into the psychological reasons that people feel driven to look that way, but there's only so much muscle mass that you can naturally put on to your skeleton. And to get beyond that, you need extra help through, testosterone or anabolic steroids and all that kind of stuff. And the long-term use of that is pretty detrimental. But when you come off of that, because of the impact on your natural testosterone production, not only are they having to take steroids, when they come off the steroids, they have to take estrogen blockers because the body will up the estrogen production to balance out the testosterone and estrogen. And if you pull the rug out from under testosterone,
estrogen doesn't just immediately drop. It gradually comes back down. So when you have no testosterone because you've pulled the therapy or pulled the steroids or whatever, your estrogen levels are going to be high for a little while, and that's going to start packing fat into your hips and your belly and in your breast tissue. And, you know, that's why it's called gynecomastia. There's a term used that we won't use today, but that it's the results in man boobs essentially. But, you know, that's why when you see like MMA fighters that were cheating and juicing or using performance enhancing drugs in between matches, they don't just test for testosterone. They test for estrogen levels too, because if their estrogen levels are too low, they know that they're taking estrogen blockers, which the only reason that you would really want to do that is if you were taking testosterone and you're trying to mask the effects of that. And so there have been fighters that have been disqualified because their estrogen levels were too low. Which, you know, and so you can't really play with your hormones. It's not a great idea. So that's why the TRT is, you should probably only do that if you have the hypogonadism, right? Is that what it's called? Hypogonadism?
Like, correct. We'll call it, primary hypogonadism. So a true, like, pituitary gland, something's actually messed up in the body, right? Because everything else, a lot of times we can fix with lifestyle, which we'll wrap it up with this one, which is a big one, which is alcohol. Alcohol, I'm starting to wonder what actually the benefit, like the more and more things we see, there's so many problems with it, and it's so available everywhere.
I don't think there are any. It's in years past, and I was actually having this conversation with somebody the other day, the more data that comes out that just basically debunks that whole, drink a glass of wine, it's good for your heart health. Well, I think that the reason they say that is because a glass of like red wine has antioxidants in it. But guess what else has antioxidants that doesn't kill you? Fruit. You know, like we can get antioxidants all over the place. But alcohol, there's not anything beneficial to it that you can't get from other things. Like celery. There's nothing good in celery that you can't get from vastly better vegetables.
I understand.
We won't, that's all I'm going to say about that. But no, alcohol, I just really don't think that there are any, health factors that are positive. So alcohol is one that, I mean, if you are drinking, I would just advise trying to stop. You know, drugs, marijuana is a big one that causes, and THC is in everything now, and vaping, all these things. It really messes up that axis. Amphetamines is another one, whether it's because it disrupts sleep cycles or whatever, but high long-term use of amphetamines can affect testosterone levels as well. So again, it's one of those, like, as much stuff that we can get out of our body and put in healthy stuff and exercise, it's just like, it's almost like it works all the time in a lot of things. Garbage in, garbage out, right? Essentially.
Well, Michael, any final thoughts? I mean, this is a pretty good, I think, review on what to do and things like that.
I'll do just a quick review of what you can do to raise your testosterone naturally, and then I want to throw out a statement on supplementation. And so the lifestyle factors. Number one, lose weight if you're overweight. Start exercising, especially strength or HIIT training. Get better sleep, stop alcohol, and start eating a nutritious diet with plenty of whole foods, fruits, vegetables, protein. And if you can do those, like 5 or 6, manage stress. So if you can do those things, you're probably setting yourself up for your best case scenario as far as your testosterone levels. And then if it's still a problem, that's when, you should start talking to your doctor about maybe some other therapies or whatever. But a lot of people will not want to have that conversation, but they'll see in like GNC or some other supplement stores like Vitamin Shop or whatever, that they have products in there that claim to boost testosterone levels. They don't really do that. Anything that is a supplement that you're going to take probably isn't going to make a significant impact on any of your hormone levels, because when you start messing with hormones, that gets really iffy. And so the supplement industry is not regulated the same way that the pharmaceutical industry is. And so they have to be very careful, because if they make a specific claim, that's why you never see on a supplement, it will reduce or will increase your testosterone. it may increase your testosterone with strength training and good that kind of stuff. See, they word these things specifically because if you eat right and exercise and do strength training, your testosterone is going to go up anyway.
Absolutely.
And so the supplement may like help with the strength training aspect in some form or fashion, but it's not directly going to increase your testosterone without all of the other things being there as well.
Correct.
And so none of them are going to be worth spending your money on. So just save that.
Yep.
Do the main things first. But the supplementation is probably just not a way to go for testosterone. There are other supplements you can take for other reasons that are great. Protein, creatine, stuff like that. Great. Yep. And we should probably do an episode on creatine. That'd be great.
Because that's one of the most studied supplements, and there is some benefit for that. So.
Oh man. And there's so much research coming out on it lately, for all the cognitive benefits, which is really fascinating.
For sure.
But another topic for another time.
For sure.
But yeah, so save your money on the testosterone boosters. They're not really going to do you any good. Just focus on the things that do work naturally. And, if that doesn't work, then talk to your doctor about it, because that you're not going to fix it with a supplement.
Correct. And again, it's one of those that if you do talk to your doctor, there is risk and benefit for starting therapy like this. So it's not something to decide lightly. Some people, and again, that's between you and provider, but just want to let you know there are things you can do naturally to fix this problem.
Yep.
All right. Well, Michael, thanks again for popping on, talking about this.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of those, we get this one a lot, so we figured we'd throw it into an episode and, just let people hear what matters and what doesn't.
Yep, for sure.
All right. See you guys next time.